Welcome back, everyone. I'm Carrington-Russell, Australian award-winning author of kick-butt heroines in steamy, dark fantasy worlds, and I have a very special guest for you today. We are talking #1 Amazon charts and Wall Street Journal best-selling author with over 11 million copies sold, and everything that is murder, mystery, and romance in between. We are talking to the one and only Melinda Leigh. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Kaya?
I'm fantastic, especially now that I'm talking to you. We were just talking that you've just finished your day of writing. Is that correct?
I have.
And then you've just dropped the bombshell that you work every day on a project.
I do. I do try to take a little time between projects, but I feel like I just can't keep all the plot lines and facts in my head if I take time off in between. So even if I only write a couple of hours, I try to work every day.
Well, take me back to the start then. When did you start writing? What made you want to write a book in the first place? And how did you find publishing?
That's really an interesting story. I never wrote anything until I was almost 40. My kids were in school full time. I was a banker before I was a stay-at-home mom for a while. And my husband started to look at me like, hello, the kids are not home. Maybe you could go back to work. And I did not want to go back to banking. Banking was horrible. So he said to me, you always have your nose in a book. You should write one. So it's kind of a dare. And I thought, I can do that. How hard can it be? So, and then I sat down, and 2 years later, I finished my first book.
And what book was that you first wrote?
That was She Can Run.
How did you?
That was my first book.
How did you find it? Like writing a book, going from reader to taking 2 years to write a book. How did you find the process initially?
It was really fun in the beginning. I was blissfully ignorant. That's what I like to call it, just blissfully ignorant. I had no idea. I knew nothing about genres. I knew nothing about the writing process. The only thing I had ever written were financial analyses, which the people I wrote them didn't even want to read them. The people who were paying me to write them didn't even want to read them. They were so awful. It was 40 pages of, profits went up, profits went down. I really enjoyed that first book. I enjoyed the whole process of doing it. I had no idea I was doing everything wrong. It was fine.
But you had a huge success on that debut, though. So you obviously did something right. What did you do after you've taken 2 years to write this project? What did that look like for you? Were you contacting agents? Were you wanting to self-publish? Was that ever an inclination? Where did you go from there?
Self-publishing was just beginning when I finished my first book. We're talking back in 2008-ish, 7, 8, around there. So self-publishing wasn't very big yet. It was just beginning. And I didn't feel like I knew enough about the industry to do that. I didn't even feel like I knew how to write a book. So I did my research. I was a banker, so I was a business person. I did my research on the industry, which was appalling, frankly. Then I started querying agents and editors and, getting feedback like, this is dreadful. Don't quit your day job. Then I started taking classes on writing, on craft, on actually learning how to write a book. I remember one of the first critices I got back said something about POV. And I thought, what's that? I didn't even know what that was. So I rewrote that book 5 times. That was my learning book. I just dismantled it and rewrote it and kept putting it back together until it resembled something someone else might want to read.
Yeah. What gave you that drive, though, to keep doing it after getting rejection letters and having those knockbacks and then going, you know what, I'm still going to make something of this? What gave you that drive?
I think being from business, I'm not from the artistic world, I'm from the business world. So I used to cold call. I was used to having doors shut in my faces. I didn't take it personally. Okay. It's business. An agent isn't going to sign an author they don't think they can sell, even regardless. They might like your book. They might love your book. But if they don't think that the market's right to buy it, they're not going to sign you.
So what was the moment then for you when you got the letter saying, I would like to have you as my client and your publishing contract as well?
My, Joe Marshall, she's my agent. And I still remember she called me. I don't know what, I was probably in the middle of making dinner or just some inane, ridiculous task. And I was just, it was one of those kind of stare at the phone moments. Like, is this really happening? We talked for a little while, and then she was really interested in the book. She loved it. So we went on from there.
Wow. And then
I'm
how
still
long?
with her. I am still with her almost 13 years later. Yes.
What a perfect marriage. How long did it take to get to your publisher? And how did you find that process? Because I don't think anyone is prepared for that experience until you go through it all the first time. So how was your roller coaster ride?
I am very lucky that I have a great agent. So she walked me through the process. We got a lot of rejections. Virtually everyone rejected it. No one wanted it. It was terrible. It wasn't terrible. In fact, I got a couple. It was terrible. But we also had a lot of, we don't know what to do with this. It doesn't sit neatly on a shelf. It's not a romance. It's not a straight thriller. It's not a straight mystery. We don't know where to put it. So it was more of a marketing issue back then. Again, self-publishing was not big. Ebooks were just beginning. They were not a huge market yet. So, and again, I was blissfully ignorant. I didn't even know what the genres were. I just wrote what I felt like writing. Whatever came out is what I wrote. So I feel like I came up with something fresh just because I didn't know what I was doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of us go into this being ignorantly bliss too. It's such a, when you look back at it, say 10 years ago, and you think, wow, I had so much fun on that first project. And now you're a lot more critical on it. The ticks that you have to hit, you're a lot more conscious about the market. Would you say you still very much write from the heart, as to what you want, no matter what genres are blurred? Or do you try to refine it a little so it's more sellable, I want to say?
I think I write more what I want now. Because I have that luxury now. And, when you're first starting out, you don't have that luxury. You don't have a readership that already likes you and will come along with you if you stray a little bit. In the beginning, you have to write what's selling, or you just won't sell your work. You have to be practical.
Yeah.
A little bit.
So, because you've received many accolades as well, in your short career so far, 10 to 13 years, we still consider that short, considering you'll be doing this forever and a day. You've done amazing things, and to have over 11 million books sold is incredible. I'd like to know, though, when was the moment for you where you thought, I'm an author, this is real, I'm living the dream? What moment was that for you?
I think the moment that it all became real for me was when my husband was able to quit his job. He hated his job. He worked in banking. It's a horrible business. It really is.
He wanted you to go back to banking.
So when he was able to quit his job, that for me, that was a real moment.
One of the books I want to talk about, which has been a huge success for you in the series as well, is Cross Her Heart. So for those who are watching that haven't yet read that book or any of your work, what is that series about, and what gave you the inspiration for it?
The series is about a female sheriff. It's not how it begins, but she becomes a female sheriff. I don't think that's a real spoiler there. But it's really about a woman who overcomes a huge tragedy in her childhood, a huge traumatic event that makes her want to help others. And the inspiration for that was I was at a writer's conference, and I was taking a class on, what was that class on? Domestic violence, I think it was. And I'm very familiar with domestic violence anyway. I have taught women self-defense. I have worked with domestic violence victims. And this was actually 911 calls from children. And it just absolutely ripped my heart. And when something really, really bothers me, as a writer, you write about it. That's how you kind of get it out. Yeah. And that's how Cross Her Heart came to be. I wanted these people to be okay. So I wrote them as okay. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wonder if, because you also are, is it second degree belt in Kenpo karate, I think it is. And then you've also dabbled in other forms of fighting and self-defense. And as you said, you've even taught it to women. So I was curious as to whether that's helped your writing in any way.
I think it has. I think especially I'm a very small person. So I know what's realistic and what's not realistic. I know what's possible and not possible when you're dealing with a physical altercation between, a woman and a man.
Yeah.
Strength isn't everything, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
So I think there's certain limitations that you need to be aware of, but also things like leverage,
Yeah.
and technique that you can use.
What's one of the weirdest things you've ever had to research?
Oh, I've researched all kinds of things. My kids will tell you, there's the time mom made me lock her in the trunk just to see if she could get out.
Did you get out?
Yes. Oh, yeah. There's a little trunk release inside, but I wanted to make sure that I could actually fit and I could actually do the physical things inside the trunk that my character was going to do. Yeah. So I made my daughter come out and stand there while I, just in case I couldn't get out, while I climbed in the trunk and did those things.
Yeah, I love that you're very hands-on in that sense, because I know a lot of authors will go, logistically, I think that could happen, but you're very hands-on with it, aren't you?
I can't write it unless I can feel it.
How do you go with location setting then in your books? Have you been to all of those places, or?
Most of them.
Yeah.
Most of the places I've written about, I have been, but you can actually do, you can go on Google. You can actually put yourself, put the little person, you can drop yourself almost anywhere and turn around and look and walk down streets. And it's actually amazing. I try not to write about too many places where I haven't at least been, though, because again, I think every place has its own feel.
So what does your writing process look like then? I'm assuming you're probably a plotter. And what does your 9 till 5 look like? And what's your writing process really?
I used to be a plotter, but then I found out I was rewriting all of my books and throwing away my outlines because as I wrote, things were feeling different. I've become more of an organic writer as as my career has progressed. Mm-hmm. I write a lot by just how the book feels. And that's when what I call writer's block, when I hit a stumbling block is I know something's not right in the plot. I know I need to go back. I need to smooth something out or fix something's wrong in the book.
How long does it roughly take you to write a book, would you say averagely?
Right now, 4 to 5 months.
Okay.
I would like to have longer, but I just don't have longer right now. I did have longer for my last book, but then, things happen, life happens, and I ended up losing 2 months. So then again, I still had 4 months, but I can do it in 4 months.
So then what does it look like for you where you wake up at a certain time? What's your day-to-day look like?
Day-to-day, let's see. The first 2 months, I get up, I work out, have my breakfast, open up my laptop, stare at it, type a little bit, rewrite the first 5 chapters 100 times. And then the last 2 months, I write nonstop and I'm miserable and I feel really bad for my husband. So that's how it looks. There's a lot of coffee involved.
Yes.
Writers are not easy to live with. We are not.
How do you go? Do you talk to your husband a lot about this is happening and this is happening, or have you sort of, I want to say, taken a back seat with that, because we're very passionate about our projects. So I have learned to have a filter when people ask, what's this book about? I'll say, do you want the long version or do you want the short version? Because I'll ramble on for ages. So do you go into detail with him about it, or do you just keep the short version? And does he read your work?
Sometimes he reads them. Sometimes I've written a lot of books. He's read some of them. He's not read all of them. I tend to not talk too much about plot because I'll reach out to my author friends for that. I have friends that I can swear I can send them 2 sentences and they can fix my problem. They can know nothing about my book, but they know me. Yeah. And they can fix my problem very, very quickly. But I have enlisted him in projects. Let's see, which book was it? It was either Midnight Obsession or Midnight Betrayal, which take place in Philadelphia. And we used to live right outside Philadelphia. And he used to work in the city. So I enlisted him to help me find places that would be great to dump dead bodies. So we spent a whole day driving around the city, and he was kind of was kind of scary how good at it he was, finding places where we could leave dead bodies.
It's a bit terrifying. And don't worry, but you can get out of a trunk, worst case scenario. So I feel like you guys have got
exactly
happening. What do you think one of the most surprising things is that you found in the industry that you weren't expecting?
Oh, the publishing industry. Well, it's changed a lot since when I began. Everything has changed. It's appallingly inefficient, for one. Coming from business, again, when I first learned that print bookstores would rip the covers off of books, throw the books away, and mail the covers back for a full refund, I was so appalled. No one else would do that. It just doesn't happen in any other industry. It's such a waste.
I didn't even know that happened. You've just broken my heart in so many ways.
I am so sorry.
Yes,
it does happen.
That's
my dog is walking back and forth behind me.
Trying to get comfortable. I love it. Is he your little writing companion?
Oh, she is always at my side. This is Ladybug. That's Ladybug. She's actually in Cross Her Heart.
Oh,
She's character. She's always with me, no matter where I am.
What is 3 tips that you would offer somebody who's wanting to get into murder, mystery, romance genre?
Read what you want to write. Read a lot of what's popular too. If you're practical like me and you want to know what sells, what people want to read, read a lot of books. Play around with it, I guess. Those are the 2 big things: read and write. I wouldn't worry too much about the rules. Again, I just kind of do what I want. So we've established that. I'm a rule follower there.
And it worked for you?
It did. It worked for me. But you have to be aware of what's selling. And, some rules you do have to pay attention to because they will affect marketability.
Who are some of the authors that inspire you?
Some of my favorite authors. I love Harlan Coben. I love Lisa Gardner. Lately, I've been not reading a lot of mystery thrillers because I need a break. I just finished The Last Green Valley, which is a phenomenal book by Mark Sullivan. Let's see, Jeff Wheeler's fantasy series, the King Fountain series. That was very good. I read all over the board. I read memoirs. I read everything.
Would you ever consider changing genre? Have you got any side projects that aren't the murder, mystery, romance?
I don't have any projects, but I have lots of ideas. I would probably love to do a children's book. I would love to do maybe historical fiction. But for right now, I'm doing what I'm doing. So I have good momentum right now. Yeah. Things are going well. So, that's maybe in the future someday.
Absolutely. Well, we've still got heaps of time, so I can't wait to see what else you produce as well. But I'm really curious about this one because you have achieved a lot of things. So obviously, #1 Amazon charts, Wall Street Journal, heaps of accolades. What has been the most rewarding one for you and how did you celebrate?
Let's see. I think hitting #1 on the Wall Street Journal was pretty big, but I had already written quite a few books at that time. And I'm afraid you don't celebrate quite as much as you move along. You're kind of already in the middle of a new project. You're like, oh, yeah, that's great. Have a glass of champagne. And then you go back to work. So,
and I think
I probably went back to work.
And I think it's funny because we all tell each other, no, you need to celebrate yourself. You need to do something for yourself, but we don't do it ourselves. So that's what I think the community looks like. Our friends look like, you need to celebrate this, but then we don't do it ourselves. What has been your greatest accomplishment and your greatest challenge so far?
My greatest challenge, let's see. I think the hardest thing about writing is producing book after book on contract, on deadline, and still trying to keep the ideas fresh, but also delivering what your reader wants. You want to meet your reader's expectations, what they love about your character, but you still want to try to introduce something fresh in each book as well. And do that on deadline, 30 plus times. That's the challenge, I think.
And what's been your greatest accomplishment?
Doing that.
What book do you think you've had the most challenging time writing? And Why do you think that was?
Let's see, Cross Her Heart. I ended up with pneumonia when I had Cross Her Heart when I was writing that book. And I finished that book in bed with my laptop, dreadfully ill.
Oh, no.
But I met my deadline. It was the first book in a series. My publisher had a lot of marketing and production. I couldn't really push the deadline back. There were just too many dates dependent upon delivering the book on time. I mean, I could have, if I had called them and said, look, I'm really, really sick, they would have said, no problem, we'll push everything back. But I didn't want to do that because I knew there were a lot of things stacked up with the first book in a series. So I literally had my laptop in bed, my humidifier and my antibiotics. I finished that book. It was really pathetic.
I can imagine how much coffee you had in that time.
Was, and when I turned it in, and I was on that, the fun cough syrup. So when I turned it in, I said to my editor, please read this carefully. I had a high fever when I wrote this scene, and I'm not quite sure what happened there.
I can't believe you were able to push through with fevers and that as well. Wow. Well done.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, fun.
How do you go when it comes to readers? Because obviously the readers are what makes the dream come alive. So where do you interact with your readers, and do you have a most memorable moment?
Well, I have not seen readers in a couple of years, as most of us have not, and I have missed them. I have done, but in the past, I love readers. Readers are why we all do this, right? I had one woman bring me a box of strawberry Pop-Tarts to a signing because my character loved strawberry Pop-Tarts, one of my characters. So she literally brought me a box of Pop-Tarts. But I think the one that really touched my heart was when a military spouse widow came up to me at a book signing, and she told me that when she read the Morgan Dane books, that I had absolutely nailed the character and all the pain that she went through. And, it was several years later. And, she said that that character just really resonated with her. So as a writer, when you have someone who experienced what you wrote about, tell you really got it right, and that you helped her and that she really enjoyed your character. That was probably one of the highlights of my whole career.
Where can readers engage with you? What kind of social medias do you have, or do you have a specific platform that everyone goes to?
I am on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Yeah.
Although I don't even have a whole lot. Instagram, I can't quite figure out. Don't DM me because I can't find them.
Have you ever thought about doing TikTok?
I have not. I'd have to get my children to come.
Yeah.
I have 2 kids in their 20s, and I would have to be like, kids, you got to do this. I have no idea.
I can imagine people scrolling through your account being like, why is this woman in a boot? What is happening here? I think you'd be a hit. And I'll be like, what is she doing now? Do it as author.
The problem with social media is the time suck.
Yeah.
And I have deadlines. I have work to do. I don't have time to, make 100 videos. I do try to post a lot. I volunteer with the Sea Turtle Preservation Society here. So I will post, like, now that it's summer, there'll be like turtle time posts, we're called the nests. We do the nesting surveys at dawn. And then later I'll have pictures of hatchlings as we, watch the hatchlings go to the ocean.
What has been one thing, as you're saying, social media is a time suck, and it absolutely is. It's very difficult to commit to so many different things in this career because you have your marketing, you have your social media, you have your actually writing and producing the book. So over the years, what are the things that you've learned to cut down so you can focus your attention on the writing that for you felt like you were trying to do, but then found almost unnecessary?
I have cut my social media time down. I try to be more efficient with it. Sometimes I will go a couple of days without posting. I do have other people that do handle some of those things for me now, which is really helpful. My life is a little chaotic. I don't really have a whole lot of, this is the time for this and this is the time for that. I kind of go with it. I don't really watch much television at all.
Yeah.
I'm just not. I mean, I'll try to watch a little bit each day just to relax, but I'm not a big TV watcher. I don't actually read physical books that much anymore. I just don't have the time, and my eyes are strained at the end of the day. So I have embraced audiobooks.
Fantastic.
So while I'm out on my road bike, or I'm walking the beach, a lot of times I'll have one earbud in and I'll be listening to a book at the same time.
How have you found your own audiobooks? How was that, especially with the first one, hearing your book come to life? What was that experience like?
I don't listen to them.
Really?
I don't. I want to edit everything. I have never really liked anything I've written. And I know you won't be surprised. Readers don't understand that, but to most writers, everything they've written is like, I don't know, like a kindergarten's drawings where they always think everything's terrible. Only your mother will like it. It's kind of how everything feels.
Every time you go over it, you're like, I should change this word or this and that. And absolutely.
Why did I do that? This character should have done this. Why did he say that? Right?
Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? Is that something that you've had to overcome in time?
I don't know a single writer who doesn't have that. I mean, I've been published for 11 years now, and I still feel like I'm absolutely clueless. Every time I open up a new book and I stare at that opening, that blank first chapter, like, I don't know what to do. Who does?
I think so many authors experience that as well. So they're like, am I still doing that? How did I fluked the last one. How am I here again?
And at the end of every book, it's the worst thing you've ever written. Your career is over. My agent's going to fire me.
And you're back to the charts. You're like, that's a nice surprise. I can do this for another round.
They liked it, huh?
What is your top 3 tips and advice for when it comes to marketing for fellow authors who are listening?
I don't do a lot of marketing anymore. But I would say when you're on social media, you don't market your books. You just be yourself. Readers just want to know about you. Just be yourself. Be authentic. Let them into some fun things you have in your life. Let them meet your dog. They always love pets.
Yes.
Just be yourself. It's not necessary. I find not as necessary to market each book or to have this huge release day blogging schedule. I think it's more important to have a couple times a week, letting the readers just see who you are. That's really what they want. I mean, obviously you keep some things personal, but they just want to see who you are. They just want to get to know you a little bit. They want to know the person behind the books.
Yeah. So
I think that's more important than having like a huge release day thing.
Having that consistency and reach out and letting them know that you're there and that you share a lot of things in common.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a person. I'm a mom. I've got kids and dogs, and I've got to clean the vomit off the carpet just like everybody else. It's not a big glamorous life.
Yeah. What then is your advice for those who are looking at seeking out an agent or having a publisher, because you're contracted with Montblanc, which is amazing. Congratulations. So do you have any advice for those who are just starting out on that journey of pitching?
I don't even, it's been too long since I have even pitched. The one thing I would say is don't give up. Don't be afraid to go back and take a hard look at what you've written and see if it really does need work. But also don't take every rejection personally. Even when you have 11, 12 million readers, every book is not going to resonate with every reader. You're always going to get a reader that says, that's going to email you and say, I have loved every one of your books, but I didn't like this one. You cannot possibly make everyone happy all the time.
Yeah.
And this is business. So when an agent or an editor is looking at your work, it's not just, do they love it? Do they hate it? It's what's selling right now. Can they market it? Because it's about money, honestly. It shouldn't be, I guess, but it is. It's a business.
Unfortunately, but that is usually a hard learning curve for a lot of people too, is they produce this book, and I think the hardest lesson for a lot of people is not taking it as personally, as you said before, because you were banking for so long, you're in a business mindset, you can take things not so personally. I think that's the greatest challenge for a lot of writers and authors. What is one of the greatest resources you found? You're saying before that, you went over your first book 4 or 5 times, you were taking classes. Are there any resources or communities that you would mention to fellow authors watching?
I would say, first of all, find out if there's a local writers group.
Yeah.
Only other writers will really understand what you do all day. They will not, people who don't sit and behind a laptop in their pajamas, who haven't showered in 2 days, who've only had coffee and chocolate for 36 hours, those are your people, right? Those are your people.
You're so attacked now.
Right, exactly. You feel seen, right? Sometimes my husband will just like, especially when I'm on deadline, it's like those last few weeks, he'll just come to my office kind of tentatively, like, careful. And then he'll just like drop some chocolate and then back away slowly. So reach out to writers groups, meet other writers. I mean, it's good to know some writers who have sold some books, who could give you some advice, but it's also really good to have writers who are in the same place as you are career-wise, because they're experiencing the same rejections. Rather than going on social media and freaking out and saying, oh my God, this editor is horrible. Never do that. Call your friend, cry to them for 24 hours, and then put it behind you and move along.
That's why I love this community so much too, because as you said, we really are the only people who understand the pain and the steps, and we go through the steps every time, every project. It's usually the same process, and we go through the imposter syndrome, and then we go through, oh, maybe this is a good sentence, and then it's the worst book ever, and it's just relatable for everyone who does this. So this is my favorite question to ask. What is the goal? What is the big dream that you're chasing for your career?
I don't think I really have one at the moment. just keep on.
Yeah. So you feel like maybe you're already living it?
Yeah, I feel like I've kind of hit my stride for the moment. I mean, that may change. In a couple of years, I may decide I want to do something else, write something different. But for the moment, this feels pretty good.
Yeah. The lack of sleep and eating lots of chocolate and coffee. The ideal
getting a shower for 2 days in a row. Sure, it's all good. And someone invites you somewhere and it's like, oh my God, I have to do something with myself.
I have to get dressed and brush my hair. What is this?
Hard pants.
Now, I do have a segment called Speed Dating with an Author. So you and I are going to go on a very romantic date. I've lit a candle. I've created ambience. But basically what it is 5 rapid questions. Are you ready?
Sure.
Amazing. What is the clumsiest moment you've ever had?
Oh, I've had so many clumsy moments. I could trip over a match. I'm always the person that drops the glass. And it's usually my first drink, so you can't even blame the alcohol. It's just me.
So it's just air, basically. Anything, you just trip over.
Anything. Yep. And after 2 years at home, my social skills are probably decimated. So who knows what's going to happen.
How did you go in the period of COVID? How did you find writing? Did you find it jarring in any way, or were you fine, same old same?
I found it really distracting.
Yeah.
And most of my writer friends said they found that their brains were kind of scrambled as well, just by the whole situation. And I think that's some type of a psychological phenomenon, actually. Yeah. When your brain goes toward survival, when it's worried about things, it's very hard to be creative.
Yeah.
But we managed most of this.
I think it was a big hurdle for a lot from authors that I was talking to, and I was very much the same, that it was exactly as you said. There was so much coming from the outside that it was really hard to focus, and it took a couple of months, I think, for a lot of people to adjust. But then when you got back into the swing of things, cool. Yeah. But I think it was hard. My second question, sorry, that was way off tangent. My second question is, what is your life motto?
My life motto? You can't have enough dogs. Can't have too many dogs. How's that?
How many dogs do you have?
I have 2 right now.
Amazing. And within
we always had 2 dogs, 2 cats. We've always had like 2 dogs, 2 cats. I've had a horse. We've had lots of animals.
What are 3 words that would best describe you?
Let's see. I am dependable. So boring, right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Kind and driven.
I can definitely see, like, especially the driven part. Like, I can see all of it in the kind, but driven, I'm just like, I could see that. I can
Driven
imagine.
sounded better than psychotic, you know?
But that was number 4, psychotic.
Yeah, yeah.
What is the song that best describes you?
Let's see. Pocket Full of Sunshine. I'm gonna
Oh.
go with that one.
And what is a unique talent or skill set that you have that not a lot of people know about?
Well, it goes back to karate, you know. I have actually grappled with some of the WWF guys. So
Really?
yeah, long time ago. I don't do that anymore because I had a back injury and it's a rough sport. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a really tough sport.
How many years did you do it for?
Probably 15 at least. And then I got hurt because when you're really small and most of the guys you're working with are really large and they do try really hard. I mean, I've had them, they would take my husband and they would just like slam him on the mat. And then they would just be like, set me down like their mom, you know?
That's nice that they pull their punches a little bit, or were you offended by that?
Oh no, I laughed because they were all young enough to be my children. So,
No.
you know.
I have had so much fun talking with you today. What do we need to be on the lookout for? What's coming up and where do we find you?
Dead Against Her comes out in 12 days. Today is Thursday, correct? So
Yeah.
yes, Dead Against Her is my next Bree Taggart book right here, although it looks backwards to me there.
So pretty.
This is Bree Taggart's 5th book. Pretty exciting, if I do say so myself. They just, in fact, Amazon editors just picked it as a best book of one of the best books of May in its category. So
yes, that's awesome. Congratulations.
that's always exciting.
Yeah.
Like, someone does like it.
Like, thank goodness. And I hope you're celebrating in some way when the release comes out.
I'm going to be visiting my son, so we'll probably do something.
Oh, lovely. And where do we find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Melinda Leigh author page, I believe. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, mostly on Facebook. I mean, that's where I think people are more chatty.
Yeah. Do you have
but I am
a Facebook reader group, or is it just the Facebook page that you have?
I have a profile and a page. I also have a website, melindalee.com. And if you're interested in emails, I'll send out an email. I don't send them out often, so you're not going to get a lot of email from me, only when something's happening, when there's a new release, or if there's a big sale, or there's something noteworthy. I won't bother you and I won't fill up your email with unnecessary messages.
Well, I'm going to go and subscribe now. And I love your website, by the way. Obviously, I did a little bit of stalking before we hopped on here. And your website's beautiful. It's well crafted, I want to say. So, yeah.
Thank you. I didn't build it. So I did my first one. I had taught myself HTML and actually built my first website way back.
Thank you.
A long time, but I didn't have any money. So it was that or nothing.
I have had so much fun today. Thank you for coming on, and who knows, maybe we'll get you on next year and see where you're at.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
Absolutely. And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks.
Bye, guys.